We don't trust mainstream media. Should we call it legacy media? I certainly don't trust outlets like CNN, and it seems neither does JD Vance. And he's actually gone on CNN to tackle these issues head on, to call them out on their rhetoric, and he's doing it live on air. And luckily we're getting clips of this, and the CNN hosts are left floundering in the wake of this guy. You know, I wasn't sure about JD Vance when he was first chosen as VP, but he is consistently improving himself as we get more moments like this. And we're going to show you some clips of him appearing on CNN to talk about some important issues, most importantly Springfield, Ohio, where the accusation has been made that Haitian migrants are eating people's pets. They're cats. They're taking geese and ducks from the pond, beheading them and eating them. Not only that, they don't know how to drive cars. They're crashing cars everywhere. They're killing Ohio residents. They are taking up resources that should be given to American citizens. And all this because the Kamala Harris and the Biden administration has granted hundreds of thousands of Haitian migrants TPS, temporary protective status. So let's watch him on CNN talk about these issues, and we'll watch a Dana Bash, CNN host, try to come after him, and it doesn't exactly work. Let's roll the clip.
Dana, first of all, let me just respond to a couple of things that you said, but I want to start with something you said, which I think is frankly disgusting and is more appropriate for a Democratic propagandist than it is for an American journalist. There is nothing that I have said that has led to threats against these hospitals. These hospitals, the bomb threats and so forth, it's disgusting. The violence is disgusting. We condemn it. We condemn all violence.
Senator, this happened after you and President Trump were on the debate stage, said that cats and dogs were being eaten.
You asked a question, Dana, and I'm going to go ahead and answer it. What we have said is that this town has suffered terribly under the policies of Kamala Harris. Now, you just accused me of inciting violence against the community when all that I've done is surface the complaints of my constituents, people who are suffering because of Kamala Harris's policies. Are we not allowed to talk about these problems because some psychopaths are threatening violence? We can condemn the violence on the one hand, but also talk about the terrible consequences of Kamala Harris's open border on the other hand. Now, let me just fact check a couple of other things that you said, Dana, because it's important. You said that all of these migrants are in the country legally. They are in the country through what's called temporary protective status.
Right.
That is when Kamala Harris waved a magic amnesty wand, taking people and giving them legal status. That is not to say that they're here legally. That is a terrible indictment of her amnesty policies that have further opened the border and further caused terrible migration into this country. First of all,
she's floundering. She doesn't know what the hell to do because she has no idea. What she anticipates is that she will do what she typically does when she has people who disagree with her on air, that she will just steamroll them by speaking over them, by interjecting, by spinning her own narrative, and they will be forced into submission because there's a lot of things that happen in these news interviews. One, I'll tell you, some people don't feel quite comfortable on air. Luckily, JD Vance is extremely comfortable, probably given his history as a lawyer and going into law school and being through that whole experience, having to go through and argue with people right in front of an entire audience all the time. There's also the element of being in a virtual sound studio where he's just sitting probably with a backdrop behind him, because I've done this many times before. They give him an earpiece and you're supposed to listen in as hard as you can for what this person is saying. They can interject at any time because they really have control of the feed and what's going on. And he doesn't allow any of that to stop him. And he says, no. I'm actually here for an interview. I'm not here to debate you. I'm here to talk about the issues. And you called me up here for my opinion. That's my opinion.
That's my opinion!
So I'm going to give you my opinion. And he says a very important thing, that just because I choose to talk about an issue and people go crazy on the other end of it and start calling in bomb threats and all these different things, I am not responsible because I spoke up about an issue, because I, put on a pedestal the voices of American citizens who are complaining about what's happening in their town. That doesn't make it my fault. If I'm hanging out with my friends Michelle and Abby, and I go, you know what, Abby, I don't really like Michelle, and then Abby gets up and punches Michelle in the face, I'm not responsible for what Abby just did because I brought up an issue and started talking about it. I didn't incite violence and tell her to go and commit an act of violence. The very same thing could be said about what's happening in Springfield, Ohio, and these crazy people who are, throwing out threats or going after Haitian migrants or whatever. I'm sorry. That's a whole separate issue. to whether or not people are getting their cats barbecued in the damn backyard by Haitian migrants. And, you know, a lot of people are focusing on the whole cat thing. It is a very salacious story. It's kind of crazy that, you know, people are saying, hey, my pet was eaten by my Haitian neighbor. That's a little crazy, right? What's crazier than that is 20,000 migrants being shipped, bused, you know, flown in to a city with a population of about 58,000 American citizens. That's a little bit crazier than the cats that are getting barbecued. I think the Haitian migrants getting in cars without being able to drive, running into mailboxes, trash cans, other human beings, taking the life of an 11-year-old last year, I think that's even crazier. Although it doesn't sound as crazy, I guess, as cats being barbecued. I think Haitian migrants being flown, shipped, bussed in, and taking people's resources, their EBT, their food stamps, the government welfare programs, just completely burdening them with their presence, that's a pretty crazy story as well. So instead, they're coming after Republicans and saying, how dare you bring up these baseless claims about cats being barbecued. Okay, let's actually put those on the back burner and talk about A, B, C, D, E. And no, they don't want to talk about it. They just want to come after you and accuse you of lying and being a conspiracy theorist. But J.D. Vance is not allowing it.
I have heard firsthand from multiple constituents, people who made 911 calls a month ago, a year ago, who were making these complaints. I trust my constituents more than I do the American media that has shown no interest in what's happened in Springfield until we started sharing cat memes on the internet, which is disgraceful that the American media ignored this town. And that's the most important part.
You represent Ohio here in Washington, and your state's governor is asking for federal help to deal with the influx of about 15,000 migrants over the past 4 years, which has strained the health system, he says, schools, caused safety issues. You've been talking about these problems, but what have you done to help Governor DeWine with his request for federal help?
Well, the most important thing that we can do to assist Governor DeWine and the whole state of Ohio, and frankly the whole country, Margaret, is to stop Kamala Harris's open border. And for 2 years, I've been fighting for policies that do exactly that. You have to ask yourself, why have these 20,000 Haitian migrants been dropped into a small Ohio town in just a few years, Margaret? And the answer is because Kamala Harris implemented what's called temporary protective service for over 100,000 Haitian migrants. She basically, with a magic wand, granted amnesty to thousands of people who shouldn't have been in this country, and now a small Ohio town is dealing with the consequences. And to anybody listening, Margaret, this is what Kamala Harris wants to do to every town in this country. Overwhelm them with migration, stress their municipal budgets, see communicable diseases on the rise. What is happening in Springfield is coming to every town and city in this country if Kamala Harris's open border policies are allowed to continue. We have got to stop this. American citizens are suffering because of what she's done. And
it's cheaper to manufacture overseas, which is why so many companies do it. But that's another issue. Just to follow up on the promise you're making to working class voters, you are now saying no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on income from Social Security. All of that would wipe out a big chunk of the tax base. Do you really think that fiscally conservative Republicans in Congress are going to vote for this?
Well, I think obviously Republicans believe American workers should keep more of their own money. And yes, I think that if we actually balance this out by penalizing some of these companies for manufacturing overseas, I do think that we can get this to balance out in the right way, Margaret, where we're not blowing a hole in the deficit. We're giving workers more of their money. But to your point, we're actually making it easier to make things in the United States of America. Now, you're exactly right. Sometimes it is a little bit cheaper to manufacture overseas, but we have to ask why that is. It's because a lot of these foreign countries use literal slave labor in manufacturing. We should not be allowing slave laborers to benefit from American markets. If you want access to our market, you've got to pay our workers fair wages. That is the Trump agenda, and it's something he already implemented once, by the way, Margaret, but is going to double down on in his second term.
Woo! This is what we needed at the presidential debate. This is what we needed at the presidential debate. And J.D. Vance is really setting himself up, I think, for a lot of success. I cannot wait to see him go and debate Walz head to head. ahead, and I hope that is just a highly publicized event that everybody and their mother and brother sits down to watch, because he's going to flame him if this is the energy that he brings. He's really holding these people accountable. And I think what was needed most when we watched Kamala and Donald Trump debate was not only to Trump to be a little bit more fiery, a little bit more on the ball and talking about these things in the very same way that JD Vance is in these clips, but also directly calling out media to their face as they are trying to gaslight you, as they are trying to propagandize. Had Trump at one point in the debate last week said, feels rigged right now. I feel like you guys are actually debating me. I feel like this is a 3v1 debate. And of course you get more of that in hindsight, but had we had that in the moment, had we had them called out and held to account in the moment, I think that could have been a really powerful statement to have made. And unfortunately we didn't get that. And it does seem as though we're on this, Trump says something, JD Vance sort of cleans it up. Trump says something, JD Vance sort of cleans it up. During the debate, Trump said, they're eating the dogs, they're eating people's pets or whatever, which, mind you, not the most eloquent way to have made that statement. We could have set it up a little bit better with her stance on immigration, with the number of immigrants she's bringing in. I did see that he tried. He felt a little flustered. He felt a little reactionary in talking about Springfield. Had we set up that story, I think, more fluidly, I think it would have landed better with the nation. And instead, we get leftists joking and making, songs and memes out of Donald Trump saying that they're eating the dogs and they're eating people's cats. And now JD Vance on the back end hits CNN and says, you know what, here are the real facts. I'm listening to residents. I'm hearing people's valid complaints about what's happening in their city, and he cleans it up. Trump comes out and says, I hate Taylor Swift, which we're going to be talking about that in tomorrow's episode. Wait for it. And JD Vance comes up and gives very valid criticism of Taylor Swift and gives a very reasonable statement as to why somebody maybe shouldn't listen to her endorsement. And here he's about to do it again on the subject matter of Haitians in Springfield, Ohio. Let's see the clip.
Dana, would you like to ask me questions and then let me answer them, or would you like to debate me on these topics? I noticed that when you had Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, you gave them multiple choice answers to the questions that you asked, and you allowed them to answer the questions. I'm happy to be here to talk about policy, but if you're going to interrupt me every single time that I open my mouth, then why am I even doing this? So please ask a question, and I'd ask you to be polite enough to let me answer it.
Yes, I am, and I think that
I am, and I think, Yeah, you know what? We forget oftentimes the media presents itself as such an authority, such a force in the world, that you forget you're on equal, if not higher footing than where they're at. And I think a lot of people, as I said before, get a little bit flustered when they're on the news. They know a lot of people are watching. They don't want to create a crazy moment. And JD Vance is going, wait a minute, you're interrupting me. You're asking me questions, then you're interrupting me. You're not allowing me to get a word in edgewise. You don't actually want to hear my answer. And you could be super polite and just continue giving your answer and allowing them to interrupt and try to get these good moments in about your policy and what you're trying to do and criticizing Kamala when they give you the moment to. Or you can say, hold on a minute. Am I on a news show to be interviewed, or did you want to debate me and attack me? And you should not feel afraid when somebody is attacking you or try to spinning your word or spin your campaign or whatever it is, even in your daily life when you're dealing with moments like this, to go, hold up, wait a minute. I know you think you have some authority over me right now, but you're playing games and I'm not going to allow these games to move forward. So either we're going to be polite and civil and you're going to ask me questions and allow me to answer, or we're not going to continue anymore. Because, my time is just as valuable as yours. And you are wasting it. More important than that, American people's time is more valuable than whatever time you're spending in the news media trying to propagandize and sell us more lies. So are we going to have a normal interview, or should I go home? Or should I go to the office and do some more? Or should I go to Springfield and talk to these residents about their damn cats being thrown on barbecues? Because maybe we could have conversations about that. And I like the very measured way in which he's talking about Springfield of like, yo, regardless of how you feel about this situation, I got town hall videos and, city hall meetings where residents are hopping on the mic and talking about geese being yanked from the pond and having their heads taken off by Haitian migrants. I have videos of people saying that there's Haitian migrants that are squatting in their yard, becoming aggressive when they are confronted, and creating unsafe environments for senior citizens. They're hitting people with their cars. They are, taking up all the lines at these government welfare offices. At the very least, you know, all of the citizens in Springfield, Ohio could be lying. They could have all got together in a little meeting before the town hall and said, you know what, we're gonna go lie on these Haitian migrants and we're gonna make up stories. And one creative Springfield, Ohio resident raised his hand and said, you know what, let's say that they're eating geese. You know what? My cat went missing the other day because I let him out. But let's say that the Haitian migrants killed my cat. And that creative guy really set off an entire lie that now the that the Haitians are doing this and the Springfield, Ohio residents are running with it. Should we at the very least maybe show up to a town hall meeting or two or a city hall meeting or two and ask people about their firsthand accounts of what's happening? Should we maybe investigate it? Or should we do what Kamala Harris did on the debate last week and laugh in the face of those people who are complaining and say that they're extreme, or at least insinuate that they're extreme? I think she said, talk about extreme, as she was cackling at their experience. Maybe at the very least, we should investigate these very crazy stories that are coming out of a small town that recently got 20,000 new residents from a different country, a country with a history of eating animals, unlike that of the animals we eat here in the United States. A country with a history of quite a bit of turmoil, okay? Whether or not you believe the U.S. created that turmoil or not, quite a bit of unrest, different cultural values, traditions, and customs at the very least. Maybe we should figure out if the 20,000 people that we gave temporary protective status that we sent to that city, maybe we should figure out if they're not exactly chumming it up and kikiing it up with the residents. Be so thorough right now, guys. So shout out to JD Vance. I didn't know how much I liked you in the beginning, but you're growing on me, big boy. You're growing on me the more news interviews you do and the more you call these people out. And don't forget, y'all, that you can do it too. Okay? They think they exercise some authority over you and they can just talk over you and interrupt and spin a narrative right as you're sitting there on the other side of the screen. But they can only do that if you allow them to.